Coming up on today's episode of JBYC.
Iain Banks has a really cool series called the Culture series about a utopian super like Star Trek kind of thing, and they have cool ship names.
There sure are not enough aliens that have been discovered for me.
Would you go live on Mars? All that and more on today's episode of JBYC. The fudge? JBYC.
Jovian Bodies, yay comments.
I think it costs money to get flamingos and hippos and lions and giraffes and lizards and other animals, such as possibly swines. I know a lot of zoos don't have farm animals, but I'm just using it for the example.
Hey everyone, it's Monday, June 24th, 2019. I'm Bobby Frankenberg, and you're listening to episode 13 of JBYC. This is the show where the three people that are trying to get together and talk about that. Spaceships! I forgot to turn the audio down at that last part. Spaceships! I just wanted to make you do that. Ow! There we go. Okay, I'm going to introduce my co-hosts here. First up is the best of all co-hosts, Mr. Ryan. How's it going, Ryan?
Hot curses.
What is Alexa doing? Alexa, stop.
He's not even paying attention to us. He doesn't even care.
She just said, thanks for chatting. I'm not chatting.
I didn't hear that.
I'm doing a show. Can you stop interrupting me? Okay, next up.
It's a chat show, Bob. It's a chat show.
Sorry.
She's gaining sentience.
Alexa, stop.
He does that.
You can tell the real man by how he talks to his Alexa.
She won't stop. She said, got it. If you want to try another social bot, I don't. Alexa, stop.
The music drowned out the intro. You double failed, Bob. You got Alexa on one side, you got chat on the other side, telling you you done messed up.
It's okay.
Here we are now.
EJ. Also, EJ, the Edge is here.
Oh,
okay, now we can continue.
But Alexa, the computer on Star Trek Star Trek has spaceships in it, and also the computer on Star Trek is like Alexa, if Alexa worked.
Yeah. That's
just a little observational comedy there for you all.
Yeah.
I'll be here all week.
Yeah. Why do we have corporate listening devices? Mitsu Kazan asks. Because I don't know, it just makes life easier. So today go ahead.
You just said convenience.
Oh, yeah.
You have one too? I didn't know you had one too.
Don't buy one of these. That's a reverse commercial.
a remercial.
A remercial.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about spaceships, as we said, and we'll get to that in a minute. But first, this weekend, I did a thing that is intensely stupid that I do every year. The network that I am a part of, the Shadowcasters Network's 36-hour streamathon. So I was up for at least more than 36 hours because it started at 4 p.m. and I woke up at like 6:30 a.m. So that was really hard. Have you ever? What's the longest you guys have ever stayed up?
The longest ever?
Yeah.
I don't think I've done more than 3 days, but I think I've done 3 days many times.
Something like that.
But it was all in my youth.
Yeah. So all in your youth? Oh, all in your youth.
Yeah.
We are
for
too
some reason,
old
that
for
sentence didn't make sense to me.
This 35-hour stuff.
Yeah, I really am. So this time, it's never been that much of a problem before, but this time I got through the whole thing. I'm struggling. I only got like maybe an hour or an hour and a half of sleep through the whole thing because I was on there for only 25 of those 36 hours. And then Maddie Smith says, you did a good job on the streamathon, Bobby. Thank you. He was there for a lot of it. Yeah, so we got done with the streamathon 4 a.m. on Sunday morning, and I got done. I was starving. I ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, a banana, and then spent the next hour and a half vomiting.
Jeez.
Yeah.
See, we are too old.
Okay.
I can't look. I am so sleep dependent now. I am a big old baby when it comes to like. I have got to get my sleep.
I've never had that problem before. It was really disconcerting because I always look forward to the sleep I'm going to get afterwards. And no, I just an hour and a half back and forth from the bathroom to the bed and vomiting and it was terrible. It was terrible.
It's not good for your health.
Were you drinking water the whole time? Were you being good about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I was keeping hydrated and all that stuff that you should do to take care of yourself and
Except for sleeping.
except for getting any sleep. But I did all those other things, and that's never happened. And so
Did you micro sleep any? That's the creepiest thing about sleep deprivation to me. I micro sleep a lot.
How would
Do you
I
know what
know
that is?
if I might describe microsleep to me?
You
and
kind
tell
of
me how
know.
I would
It's
know.
like, okay, micro sleep
Twitch
is when
would
you're
tell
so
you
sleep
that you'd
deprived
be
that you'll
banned.
sleep for like like a microsecond. It looks like this. You can see people doing it. They'll go like this. You know, like their head will like
Oh,
bob.
you're talking about like while I'm watching
Anything on Netflix. Like the
boring
last thing
Netflix
you watch
show.
on Netflix.
Yeah.
The last thing you watch on Netflix every night.
Yeah, that last episode of Battlestar Galactica when I'm like, now I'm just going to have to watch this one over again. I'm going to bed.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
That's
so
micro sleeping.
I did not micro
It's really
sleep.
creepy.
Well, I micro slept a couple of times on breaks when I would turn on an episode of a Curb Your Enthusiasm while I waited till the next time I was supposed to be
Ooh.
on. So
The dirty little secret. I used to micro sleep in class, and I would have like little micro dreams, and they were really weird because they would always be very contextual to the classroom. So I would be like in class, and I would be doing one of these things, and I would fall asleep for like 5 seconds, and I would very briefly dream that like the teacher just started screaming or turned into a bird or whatever.
oh god.
And that never happened to you when you were a kid, like in school?
I wouldn't dream that the
never had,
teacher
like-
turned into a bird.
Oh, really? Okay, that's weird. You're weird.
I guess so.
You weirdo.
I'm sure I've done it. I just can't think of an example because like I was already sleep deprived, so I'm not really functioning enough to remember that.
Yeah, I agree
Clear
with
core
Neko.
Alex fell asleep while walking. Oh, you had another comment you were going to read.
Yeah, I was going
You
to
read
say
yours.
that I was agreeing with Neko and Yoko that I want to macro sleep, and I did not get to do that. So.
Macro sleep's the best. But have you ever fallen asleep during a physical activity like walking? I think I told my story about driving. That's probably the worst thing I've ever done.
I've done driving before, not like bad, but like yeah.
My brother-in-law fell asleep driving and flipped his car. He
Is
was
he
fine.
okay?
He was fine.
Real bad.
Okay, I have to know if I could make a joke about it
Yeah,
now or not. 'Cause
yeah,
I wanted to say
you're like,
nice.
Delay laughter. Delay laughter.
That's like one of the first things Grant ever told me. I was like hanging out in his dorm room, and he was like, I don't remember why we were talking about his dad, but no, I said it was one of those things. It was like a normal conversation, like what did your mom and dad do? He was like, well, my mom's a nurse. My dad, he was in an airplane crash. And I was like, oh my God. And he was like, he was fine,
Moron.
which is true. He really was in an airplane crash, and he really was fine.
That's nowhere near as bad as one of the first things Grant told me, which was that he only had one testicle. One of them was removed, which is not true.
Oh, we could talk about lies Bobby told
yeah.
as a
I was-
fifth grader,
I was
but we
just
won't.
I was getting it back. Yeah. Don't talk about how terrible of a person I was when I was in elementary school.
If anyone wants the details, DM me. I got the scoop on Bob.
Oh no.
Grant's
so, yeah.
going to the Russian school, and I've always thought about doing one of those things, and I feel like I'd go crazy. So he's doing Middlebury. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
I
you're
did it. I loved it.
cool.
Because I
You
always
can't talk
have
any
to
other
stop
language.
again. Because every time he says or types it, I do think he says Dingleberry.
Yeah. I thought I was at Dingleberry for 2 months. I was so surprised when they gave me the certificate at the end, and it was like
and
Middlebury.
disappointed, if I might add.
Yeah. I think you'd like it though, Ryan. It's pretty fun. It's very like cerebrally challenging in a good way, I think.
What did you go for?
I was a little
German?
isolated though. That was the thing I didn't like about it.
So to give
because our
context,
age is weird.
To give context to everybody, Middlebury, if you don't know, it's this language immersion program. You go there and just for what, 2 months, EJ, you are only spoken to in the language, and you can only speak the language.
You can only speak, read, write, and listen to whatever language you're studying.
Right.
No English,
Full
and they're very strict
immersion.
about it.
Yeah, and they're super strict.
But the worst part was my age, I think, Ryan. That's the hard part. Because everyone's either like 18, 19, 20 college kids, or they're like 50, 60-year-old professors. I was basically the only person in my age bracket at all. So it was. I actually was the same age as all the professors. So I mostly spent my time with the professors, actually.
I've always
It was kinda
thought
weird.
that it would be really hard because you would go crazy, you know? Like, don't you just
No,
kind
it's
of go
weird.
nuts?
The human brain adapts really quickly to that kind of thing. It's like something the human brain is actually very good at. We just don't practice it very much as native English speakers. But like one of the things that the human brain is made for to do really well is communicate, and learn languages.
Was it you?
So you
or
adapt
was it,
really fast.
Was it you or
That's the whole point
Grant
of the
that
program.
told me that there's this phase that you go through where for like a day or two you feel like completely isolated and depressed and then something clicks
Yeah.
over?
Yeah. It's like, I mean, there's definitely highs and lows, and there's some really deep lows, kind of. And I think it would have been a lot easier for me if I had a clique to be in.
Yeah.
Because like, besides the professors, because you can't really have a lot of solidarity with the professors. You know what I mean? They're kind of the enemy. And I didn't want to hang out. I probably could have hung out with like the 19-year-olds, but I didn't. I felt kind of creepy. You know what I mean? They were like kids.
Yeah.
So I didn't really want to spend too much time with them. And then I don't know. I just felt like every time I was they were nice. They were really nice and welcoming, and I probably could have spent a lot of time with them. But every time I was hanging out with them, I was like, this just feels like I'm babysitting. No
Yeah.
offense to 19-year-olds. These were specifically
No, 19-year-olds
like
are the
very
worst.
immature 19-year-olds that I was with. But anyway, and then the old people were like, they were the bullies, like the 60-year-olds. Every time I came around, they were like, get out of here, kid.
What are you doing here?
I'm so bad at languages in general that like I feel like I would hit that initial barrier, and even if I had like a group I could hang out with, they would get
Yeah.
further than me very quickly, and I'd be like, oh, I'm the guy that can only say hello.
I absolutely thought the same thing, because the reason I went there was because I was studying Korean for years, and I was just hitting that wall so hard I could not get past like level 2. Like I was at beginner level 2 stage basically, and they placed me in level 3, and I was like, I was terrified, and I literally tried to get dropped down, and they wouldn't let me, and but I did it, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life probably. But your brain will take over. It's like so stressful that your brain just takes over, and you don't have any option but to learn.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the point of the whole program. It's pretty fascinating, really.
Huh.
Because I'm like terrible. I'm terrible at learning languages. I'm probably
Me
worse
too.
than you, Ryan. I don't know.
Remember we were in that German class, which was like semi-immersion for an hour, 1 hour, 2 or 3 times a week, and we quit. So
Not before
Yeah.
I'm getting super
Yeah.
annoying about
Yeah.
it though.
That's true.
no, do you
The what
remember?
now?
Do you remember what caused us to quit? The assignment was, here, you have to read this book that's in German. We were like, that's it, we're done.
Yeah. A whole book, and it was like we had like a week or something. Come
whole
on, I
book.
can't read an English book in a week.
Yeah.
Herr Schwartzman.
And it wasn't even, it was like the German equivalent of the Boxcar Children. Like it was that level of reading, you know? Like,
I
I
couldn't read the
remember you
Boxcar
guys-
Children in a week.
We would be eating like lunch or something, and you guys would be full German, and I'd just be like, please speak something I can understand.
yeah, we were very inconsiderate.
I wasn't going
I don't
there. I was
remember.
just saying you guys were all up in there. Yeah.
I mean, I'll own it.
I plead the Funst.
All right, perfect. Here we go.
Everybody, do the robot.
Oh man, the Culture series. I've never heard of the Culture series. What is this book?
I wore
Have
my
you
anarchist
heard-
shirt just for you, Ryan, because tell them about it.
Have you heard of the Foundation series?
No, I don't read a lot
No.
of books.
That doesn't mean that you
Oh,
haven't
you're
heard
right.
of something.
That doesn't mean
but
I've never
okay.
heard of it. Good point. No, I've never heard of it. It sounds really familiar, but the foundation is also something in the lore of the Shadowrun RPG, so I might be getting confused.
They might be connected. I've never thought about it actually. No, Ian Banks is. I want to say it's hard sci-fi, but it's basically Star Trek kind of stuff, where it's a utopian, do what you want, be what you want, use whatever pronouns you want kind of world. But the books are all about dealing with other cultures, basically. Like it's
that's
the
the
thing that they're in. It's called.
That's the in
Go
living
ahead.
color ethos. You know, you can do what you want to
What?
do in living color.
Did they say that?
Yeah.
Do what you want.
You can
That's a
do
Kid and
what
Play
you
song.
What you wanna do?
Oh.
I can't sing that
I was
anymore.
thinking of no.
Living color.
I was thinking of another early '90s rap hip hop thing, which was the Addams Family theme song by MC Hammer.
Wait,
do what you
by
want to
MC
do, live how
Hammer?
you want to live, play how you
Yeah.
want to play. Addams
Oh,
Family.
yeah.
Those are the Addams Family values.
Exactly. But that was not the theme to Addams Family Values, though.
No,
that was
it
the
wasn't.
theme to Addams Family.
Was it
Just
in
to- just to
the
be
credits?
Clear.
Because a lot of those are always in the credits. Like they had the Fat Boys like do a rap in like Freddy and that kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, I think it was in the credits. I'm pretty sure.
Like the ninja
But-
rap in the Ninja Turtles movie.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, yeah. But they had that feature.
Because
But,
when
like-
you're a kid, you're literally waiting the whole movie to hear that song, and
They
they're
know,
like,
they know what they're doing.
they're gonna make you wait till the end.
That was the early '90s equivalent of what the MCU does now with their like post-credit stingers.
Exactly. It really
Sort
was.
of. It was just always. It was just like from like step one though. Like as soon as the credits started, you were hearing what you wanted to hear instead of waiting halfway.
Yeah.
You might have got a music.
But then you were like, man, I can't wait till the credits so I get to hear what dope rhymes Marky Mark's got to drop on us.
AKA Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. All right.
Remember how everyone's
so tell me
mind-
about this.
Oh, okay,
Tell me about this
sorry.
book.
Okay, well, it's for lack of a better word, it's a Star Trek kind of world where like this culture, it's called culture, is like this one conglomerate of humanoids and then they deal with others, and it's much more complex than that. But I'm boiling it down to like there's minds, there's really advanced AIs, and they're usually in control of administrative things like ships and like planet, and they always name themselves, and they always have cheeky names. They're whimsical, and like the wiki will tell you, like even the warships are whimsical, but in like I'm gonna kill you also kind of way.
Yeah.
Like they say in particular, warship names are similar to retain a whimsical nature, though the humor tends to be more cynical and.
Well, I mean,
And
you're
just-
in war constantly. You got to have some kind of a dark sense of humor to get through it. So.
Ship
Yeah,
names
and
are-
they're usually like referencing weird things or referencing other ships, like or this like out there. I don't know. Minority Report, just another victim of an ambient morality. The precise nature of the catastrophe. Well, I was in the neighborhood. Those are all standard ships.
That's good.
But if we go down, okay, like I'm just looking for a list, and I'll share that right now, actually, really quick. But if you go to like I don't know, like Killin Time is a warship, which is making an obvious pun about yeah, I'm killing time driving around, but also like war
Isn't
is
that the
99%.
Back to the Future license plate?
Really?
Or like, no, you know what I'm saying? The vanity plate for the DeLorean?
I don't remember.
It's something time.
Hold on.
Go for that.
Vanity plate.
But then it's like I don't know.
Oh,
like,
out of time. Out of time.
That makes more sense.
Killing Time would have been Biff's vanity plate if he had one.
Frank Exchange of Views is another warship. Like you get the idea where it's like, okay,
yeah.
yeah. But then like it's just I think it's just really charming and interesting how you have these AIs, which they have their own rules from like the humanity that they kind of interact with, but they're not like subservient. They
It's
coexist.
like they have
kind
their
of.
own culture.
Yes, sure. In
It
culture,
is
they have their own
interesting,
culture.
especially because like the AI would have more. It would be like not so annoying for them to say those names all the time.
Yeah.
It's just
And
like learning
also-
another language. It is because like
Oh,
when
yeah.
you first learn another language, like saying the names of the people in that language is kind of difficult and challenging and annoying until you get used to it, and then it's like second nature.
Mhm.
So it's almost like they have their
like,
own language.
It's also like it's like the books. I've only read 2 of the 10. but like the it has a cheekiness of the writing too, where it's like it's usually hard sci-fi, but then like the ship talks to you too, and it's like do this or do that if you want to get along with this people. Like it's a ship called, I don't know, Steely, and it's like, okay, cool.
It
It's
sounds
just
like it sounds like Terry Pratchett kind of
it's not that far
like
at all.
Discworld kind of thing.
It's not that at all. No. But it's like it has a feel of like whimsicality. It's whimsical. Like
Well, like the
those
author's
are,
Scottish, right?
and there's
Scots have always had
references to Scotland in the names very often.
There's some good ones
But then
here.
like this,
Big Sexy
yeah, there's
Beast. There's I saw one in a second. Cantankerous. There's some good ones.
what's the code
God
on
told
that?
me to do it. What, for Cantankerous?
Yeah,
It's
is it a blank OU? That means it's the warship.
no, it's a GCU.
That's a general class, I think.
The Scots have
general
always
class.
been able to turn a phrase.
No one knows what the dead think. It's just like
Ooh.
it's.
Is
I
that
don't
a
know,
pirate ship?
charming.
That sounds like what a pirate would say.
It's,
Dead men tell no tales.
It's like a normal. Oh, it's a decommissioned warship that's doing something else now.
Here's a good
It
one.
might
You'll
yeah.
thank me later.
Yeah.
I like.
There's
Is there
another
one called
that
the
references-
We Sleek It Cowran Timorous Beastie?
Maybe
There should be. You know, Robert
I mean, you
Burns,
have
the
to look-
Scottish poet.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of when you were talking about all this stuff. Because Robert Burns is. Yeah, never mind. Plebs. This is
There's
too
only-
advanced
there's-
for your
There's one in
brains.
particular I wanna point out. Just 'cause
Only
I
true
learned
intellectuals understand Robert Burns.
I learned the word from its name, hylozoist. And hylozoism is the philosophical point of view that matters in some senses. So basically, the ship's saying like, "Hey, yeah, I'm a hylozoist because like I'm alive. I'm matter that's referencing this old philosophical view."
Yeah. This one's name is called Serious Callers Only.
So, Ryan, did you know that the author is an anarcho-communist like me? And did you know that this is an anarcho-communist parable, basically?
Here we go.
Everyone's
Here we
always
go.
constantly getting me. No, I'm just saying. People are constantly asking me to read this series. It's on my to-read list. But like everyone in my audience is like, you really need to read the culture, blah 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 blah. And so I do plan on reading it. But do you sense that when you read the book? Does it feel like that kind
I
of
mean,
thing?
it's that very Star Trek idea that like we're post scarcity, we're utopian society, but the culture is very much like, yay, everything's solved. But also they're dealing with peoples that are not thinking the same
Yeah.
thing. Like there's
Right,
groups
right,
that are
right.
like they don't like AI and they don't like how AI is in the culture. There's people that leave the culture because they don't agree with the general sense, whatever. There's several different other species that just like they're doing their own thing, and because there's not a communication barrier, or there is a communication barrier, they don't
Mhm.
really interact. And there's all sorts of ideas and things going on, and there's some like weird stuff like there's floating weapons out in the middle of space, and they're just there, and some of them are assholes. But the way it works is that like space is so large that you just don't go near.
You just stay away. Yeah, space is
Yeah.
pretty big. That's something
So
that
you
Star
just have-
Trek kind of doesn't give you the impression of.
Yeah, and like so you
You know
have
what I
this like he peppers like this idea, this little mystery of like the core. It's like this like I don't know what it was called. It's like shell world, something like that, where it's like yeah they have this a doomsday weapon there that's like literally like an actual jerk, and there's no you don't know why that planet's empty now, but like you also know that no one goes there. Giant weapons, a jerk.
Right. Do you
It's
get
like
the,
Bobby's house.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like my house. Yeah. Do you actually read these books or do you listen to them?
I read them.
Ooh,
I usually
that's a good modern
read
question.
everything.
Yeah.
I
But
usually read all my books.
yeah, I think
I don't.
I've started to come to terms with. Isn't that like it's becoming acceptable now, right? Like you can say you read it even though you
Reading,
listen to it, right?
yes. What?
Yes.
Reading is
yeah,
an acceptable thing, right?
I don't like read write prescriptivist. I just did a video recently where I said that Socrates wrote something because in my mind, it's just like the simplest way to say that.
Oh, and they were like,
And I
"He
am
didn't
aware
write-
that
he didn't
Socrates
write
didn't
anything."
write anything down.
Oh, you're doing
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Like, yeah, that annoys the shit out of me because it's like, write to me means like if you say, a lot of people I think have written songs without actually marking anything down on paper.
Oh, totally.
You know what I mean? But you'd still
Bob's
say that they
doing
wrote the song.
the like ebook or not ebook Audacity thing though, where like you listen to it the whole time and you don't have to actually read.
Yeah, that's probably how I would read any books now.
Audiobooks.
I still don't do audiobooks. I still don't. I just listen to
Oh,
podcasts
wait.
all the time. But Stephanie, my wife, she reads a lot more than me, and she does it all in Audacity. Yeah.
Audacity or
I-
Audible?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Audible.
That's me. Yeah. I don't think I would call it
Lip
reading.
sync.
I think I'd call it listen to audiobooks, but I think it's equivalent. Like I don't think it's a worse or better.
Right.
I've listened to audiobooks and I would never. I don't even remember which ones I read. And like I've read a lot of William Gibson novels and I've listened to a lot of William Gibson novels, but I can't remember which is which. So I just say I read them all.
Yeah.
But
I can
so
definitely.
I had more questions for you, Ryan, about the culture. What's
probably
the
won't
so
be
the
able to answer
leadership
them.
structure of this? Like they're the human culture, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
culture.
I
Okay.
can't remember
And
the leadership structure.
Is it? I mean, do the artificial intelligence?
They
kinda
do
control the
administrative
show?
stuff. Well, I don't think they control the show. It's
Mhm.
as I recall, it's more like give and take. Like the ship AI does a lot, but there's still a captain and there's still like people.
Okay. There's a human captain, but there's also an AI. They like work
Mhm.
together. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always
the
felt like
ship
the
names
the
themselves.
computer on Star Trek was mistreated.
It's very equality in even that sense, yeah. Where
Yeah.
like the super high intelligence is actually like contributing in like another personality kind of idea.
Have you heard the term? Because this is what it really reminds me of. I don't even. Maybe this is where the term comes from, but there's this. It's kind of a meme, and it's fully automated luxury gay space communism.
Yeah, that's from this.
Oh, it is.
That's what I
Ah.
recall. I'm pretty sure it's from
Okay.
this. I always heard it
Yeah,
connected
because
to
that's what
this.
it's really reminding me of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the future
So,
liberals want.
future communists want.
That's a meme also, the future liberals want, where they show like a train of like someone wearing a horse hat and like a bunch of different colors.
Oh,
and,
right,
like,
right. Yeah.
Some grandma across the aisle being like,
That's the like.
back to the ages.
That's like That's an alt right. Isn't that an alt right thing or no?
What?
It sounds like
oh,
it's
it was co-opted immediately.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
All
Yeah.
memes are eventually co-opted by the alt-right. So
Other way, they did it against.
They did it first.
Like,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
It
and
came
then so
from
all of
4chan or
us
something.
took it and said like, yes, that's right. We do want that future, you ding dong.
That's all we do with memes nowadays. Trade them back and forth between the alt-right. Let's do this.
It's time for the edge.
You know, kind of a share.
I know I was doing it subtly. I was
That
trying.
was a
No,
good
it-
transition,
it-
actually. I thought that was a good transition.
It scares me and kills my audio for a brief second, so I don't know what's going on.
Well, it fixed
Scaring
your,
Ryan is the
it-
ultimate
It
transition.
fixed your video a little bit. It made you get a little bit closer to real lifetime. What's so Edge?
Yeah. What up?
I was so do you think, how do you feel about our we're talking about spaceships, right? How do you feel about the likelihood that spaceships are
Why don't you let me introduce my own piece, Bob?
Also,
I'm trying.
you're ruining it.
I'm working on it. Well, then, then feel free to.
All you have to say, you did a good job coming out, Orion. I'm going to give you credit where credit's due.
Gross.
Now all you got to do is say, like, what you got for us today, EJ? Bonus points if it rhymes. It doesn't have to.
All right. Now
This
let's
is
go.
tough love, Bob. Okay. Enrico Fermi, Furby. Enrico
Fermi.
Fermi. Y'all know
Fermi.
that guy?
yes.
Way to nail the follow
Okay.
through.
Yeah.
He's we could do this offline, Bob.
You're gonna talk
He's,
about
physi-
Fermi
physicist.
problems, which people use
The
on
Fermi
interviews.
paradox.
Oh, okay, whatever.
It's a problem. It is a problem. In
Oh,
my
I'm-
opinion, but we
I'm-
could talk about that.
It's an actual thing, but I was just being sure.
So who is
We can talk
Enrico
about that.
Fermi?
Enrico Fermi was this physicist.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. And so
Uh-huh.
anyway, he came up with this. He realized something very important about America
Mm,
and the universe around it.
man, you're doing a weird America like central thing that you don't normally do. Like
Wow.
it's like when he looked at the camera and then he went to his other like podcast style and like, had to say America instead of space.
Yeah. Well, I mean, America is in space, and we basically own it. So,
Yeah.
anyway. All right. So the point is, why haven't we found aliens yet? If the universe is infinitely big, says Enrico Fermi and other physicists such as Michael H. Hart, who have followed in Enrico Fermi's footsteps, then why haven't we encountered aliens yet? Because an infinite universe should have an infinite number of alien species, and yet we have found none. So the question is, I'll go ahead and go through the logic chain for anybody who's never heard of this before. There are billions of stars in the galaxy that are similar to the sun. So with a high probability, some of these must be Earth-like planets. And if Earth is typical, then some of those must have intelligent life. And if some of them have intelligent life, then some of those must have developed interstellar travel. And so why haven't they visited us? Why haven't we found them? Why haven't we picked up any of their transmissions? That's the Enrico paradox. The basic question is, where are they?
Fermi paradox.
Where is everybody?
To be fair, it's the Fermi paradox, not the Enrico paradox.
Did I say Enrico paradox?
Yes.
Yes, you did.
When did I say that? Really?
Anyway, let's continue.
Literally a second ago. That's why we're making fun of you. Keep on going.
Just trying to avoid the angry emails.
That's it. So I wanted to talk about that. Where are they? Where's everybody?
So
Bobby?
first of all, I think that there are a couple of problematic assumptions with the Fermi paradox, which is there are a couple problems, right? Like it assumes that
Bobby's smarter than Enrico Fermi?
No,
is that
I'm
what we're
not saying
assuming
that.
right now?
I'm not saying that. I think first of all,
You
let me
just
say
really like saying Enrico.
before I continue, let me say that I think the Fermi paradox is really useful as like a thought experiment or a starting point to have discussions like this, which I think are actually important discussions. But every step of that logic chain, there is an assumption, right? The assumption being that, a couple of them are not assumptions. The first couple we've found a lot of evidence for.
I would call those assumptions maybe more. They're probably more similar to like a hypothesis, an educated guess. I don't think they're just. I mean, if you're talking about the ones that I just listed.
Yes, well, some of those are educated by the only example that we have, which is our planet. Like that life is typical, and that if life is on a planet, then intelligent life is likely to arise from it. I think those are big assumptions.
I know. Well, I don't think that people who came up with and like postulated and developed the Fermi paradox, I don't think that they would disagree with you because I think that the conclusion that a lot of the people I've read like articles by and stuff, their conclusion is that I guess life must not be very common, or I guess if life does develop, they must blow themselves up before they can develop interstellar travel or stuff like that.
Well,
I mean,
Mitsuki in the chat says it like it's the idea is that if it's infinite, then there has to be.
No, so Mitsuki says, yeah, you're right.
That's what
It says assumes the universe is infinite, but it doesn't. The universe does not have to be infinite for the Fermi paradox to still be.
I said that. That was my mistake.
Yeah. Oh no, that's why. That's how it's used. Like that's why I've always like understood. Also, just like the Drake equation. I think it's the same thing. Or like it's like
the Drake equation is like something that people use to. It's they're one very similar and used often together.
Yeah.
The Drake equation is a probabilistic argument used to estimate the number of active communicative extraterrestrial civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy.
So Drake equation is basically the one that's saying if it's infinite, then X has to exist.
No, the Drake equation says if you plug in the numbers here, and this is how many civilizations or planets with life should exist in the universe.
And
the Drake equation is n equals r star
Don't do that.
times fp. Well, no, I thought we would just keep saying what the Drake equation is for the rest of the show.
But like we found Earth-like planets, exoplanets. Yes. Like we keep finding them.
Yeah. So I have
Yeah.
the one problem I have with the Fermi paradox is, yes, we have found we know within a reasonable degree for this conversation that there are, a ridiculous amount of stars, not just in our galaxy but in the universe. But if we just want to limit to our galaxy, still,
My God, it's full of stars.
there we go. We had to get that one out of the way.
My God, it's
going.
full of stars.
So then the question is, or the next step of that is, it's likely that some or many of them will have Earth-like planets on it. And yes, we have found, we have directly observed thousands. I think now we're at tens of thousands of Earth-like planets around stars.
Class M planets.
Class
If you're going to
M.
use the Starfleet designation.
And it's likely if we've already found that many within the short amount of time that we've been looking and able to detect it with those things, it's likely there's many, 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 many more. So that's fine. And also, I think some people used to think that it was a leap to say that Earth-like planets would likely, some of them would have life on them. But it's my thought that I feel like life arising on an Earth-like planet is probably actually pretty common. I know we only have our example, but we have seen in the example of life on Earth, like it's pretty well accepted scientifically that as soon as the conditions were right, pretty fast after cooling started on Earth, life started. So like it seems like that's probably not a far-fetched that many of them have life on it. Now the next step though is intelligent life. I don't know how likely it is. That's the one little bit that I think I hope in my heart that there are lots of planets with intelligent life, but I don't know that we can say anything about that because there's been only...
Well, some people say you shouldn't hope that with your heart, Bob, because some people say that the worst case scenario for humanity is that there are extraterrestrials.
I mean, we're
And
the
they
belligerent
use-
ones.
Well, that's exactly what. Who was it? Somebody was talking about this recently. I can't remember who, but like, who was it? It was some astrophysicist or something. But they were talking about how like the only example we have to draw any conclusions from is human civilization, and human civilization has this violent, colonial, imperialistic, exploitative past, and so the only real educated guess we can make is that other civilizations are like us, and if they are advanced enough to come to us before we go to them, then they'll probably come here to colonize. I just think that's kind of a interesting thought. I don't necessarily agree with it.
And I know where those scientists are coming from when they say that, but also, as a scientist, you should know that a single data point does not constitute an educated guess by any means. So
Look,
there is an interesting...
We're always going back to Battlefield Earth on this podcast, and
the rat brains.
And being taken over by belligerent, better at being belligerent aliens.
Yeah. Yeah, and
there's
it was,
a really
thank you,
interesting.
Cadme, it was Stephen Hawking that he was one of the biggest proponents of, or vocal proponents of that argument that we should really try to avoid, intelligent life.
Maybe somebody can help me remember what this is called. I read this a couple years ago. It's a really interesting theory about it. It's like they try to make the most scientifically appropriate guesses about extraterrestrial life with the very little data we have, and it had a really interesting name. That might be actually a good discussion for a future episode. If somebody can remember what I'm talking about, I can't find it from Googling right now. But so just gonna throw into the mix a couple of other explanations for why we haven't found aliens. One would be that any civilization that becomes intelligent enough that they might have the capacity to space travel will invariably destroy itself before it's able to do that.
Sure.
Which is bleak and very probable, I guess.
I think so.
I think like top of the list though is that like even with the large Hadron telescope, we're only looking at a pinprick of the night sky at any given like
not
moments.
only space is an issue, but also time.
Yeah,
like there might have been intelligent life billions of years ago or billions of years in the future.
Right.
You know, because the universe lasts for so long.
There's just so little we know, right? Again, we have our own single data point. Perhaps we're the first ones. You can't know. But that's before I want to talk about all these different hypotheses, EJ. So I don't want to stop you, but I want to say that this is exactly why I think even though I disagree with some of the points in it, I do think the Fermi paradox is an interesting and useful, like thought experiment or a way to think about things because
I think it's just a question. I think it's just a set of questions.
yeah,
I don't really
it's
feel like
just
it makes
saying
any
yeah.
conclusions.
What it's saying is if this is true, then why haven't we seen anything? That's all it's asking.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's really jumping to any conclusions at all.
Based on what you just said, questions. So you haven't heard of a Fermi problem before? It's I'm gonna say, incredibly
I feel like I've
mean
heard of it, but I
interview
don't.
problem that's used sometimes in like STEM kind of jobs. Here's an example. How many piano tuners are there in Chicago? Give me within a decimal.
So what?
So the idea is
Yeah.
that you have to like be like, okay, well, I assume there's X number of people in Chicago. How many of
Okay.
them have pianos? How many people can one piano tuner tune pianos for? And then you kind of get down to the X. The
Right.
other big one is how many windows are there in Manhattan?
So the idea
It's
being,
just-
it sounds like one of those questions where the answer is less important than watching the interviewee work it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And get to at least the right digit number. It's an estimation and critical thinking problem, but it's also like I don't know why it's called a Fermi problem actually, but it has the same kind of idea where it's
I think
okay, well,
Fermi did a lot of work with
backwards.
that kind of like.
Well, again,
Working-
the Fermi paradox gave sort of and the Drake equation go hand in hand, and the Drake equation is doing exactly that sort of, calculus. It's
going backwards from I don't expect X, but like if we were gonna find X, we need
yeah.
Y,
Start with
Z,
we have
D,
this
Z.
many. There are approximately this many buildings in Manhattan, and each of those buildings probably have on average this many, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, so I found something. I can't find the exact. If any of our listeners know the name of this theory, I completely forgot the name of it. But I found basically the rundown of the logic behind it. I just think it's interesting, so I'll throw it out there. But so the idea is okay. Earth-like planets are expected to provide the greatest opportunity for the detection of life beyond the solar system. However, our planet cannot be considered a fair sample, especially if intelligent life exists elsewhere. Just as a person's country of origin is a biased sample among countries, our planet of origin may be a biased sample among planets. And the magnitude of this effect can be substantial because over 98% of Earth's population live in a country that's larger than the median size. So basically, they're saying like, if you don't look at like country origin by like Earth population, but if you look at it by like if you just wanted to find what the average country is like, you wouldn't test the total sample. You would test the country. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Does that make sense? So so things are going to skew larger. They're going to skew like weirdly if you use the whole.
Yeah.
So anyway, the conclusion that they reach is that whatever alien lives are out there must be around the size of a bear.
Right.
Because they use all this math and like logic to figure out all this
well,
stuff.
It's also
really
like if we only have experience with like there are a couple things. You only have limited resources.
The Big Alien Theory, theory.com. I apologize, Bobby. Continue. That's
right.
the name of the theory. The Big Alien Theory.
That sounds like a fake website with like a Sasquatch on it.
If you're gonna
no, it's very interesting.
If you're gonna look for life on another planet, then you have to and you have limited resources. Then you need to look in the places that you're familiar with for the life that you're familiar with, because you're going to see it faster if you know what you're looking at, right? So that's why you look for Earth-like planets and you look for the type of life that exists on Earth, because that's what we have experience with. We know what that is. We know what it would require, and we know how to find it because we're looking at planets that are thousands of light years away. It's already really amazing that we can even detect oxygen in their atmosphere, so we it's like, what would we look for if the life was totally different? We don't know because we've never experienced it.
You should check out the Big Alien Theory because they know.
Some of the
I mean, it's interesting. I think to me, like this is a question that really should mostly be examined for fun. You know what I'm saying? Like, because really, we don't have enough data right now, as you say.
Yeah.
So it's like it's really mostly just a intellectual exercise. It's not really there's not really much practical application to it. I guess unless you're trying to figure out where to aim your
But if we start looking,
space
but I don't
telescope
know that I
array.
agree that there's no practical application. I think there's no practical application within our lifetime. But somebody's, especially with you're looking at a question that might take multiple tens or hundreds of generations to answer, then somebody's got to start looking at it.
Oh, so it doesn't matter if we live in a big computer simulation, according to Bobby, but it does matter if there's aliens we'll never meet.
That's
Okay.
different. That's different.
I see the bias. I see the Bobby bias.
No, back that train up. Because I do think that is different. Because
why?
It doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter to anyone if we live in a computer simulation. Because life will continue the way that it's been programmed for us.
Until you can hack it and you can give yourself like wings and fly around space and meet aliens and turn off your need to breathe oxygen with the variable bit code.
That was one more thing that Keanu Reeves was able to do that we couldn't. So,
did you ever read Did you ever read the movie Elysium?
No, that's the one with the exo armor.
I really actually love the movie a lot, but it's very much like a parable. You know, it's not like very realistic at all. There's a lot of stuff that's just more symbolic. So
it's very Final Fantasy VII, actually.
Yeah, it really is. It's more like symbolic. The symbolism is more important than like the realism. But anyway, so because of that, there's this one part where the hacker, it's simultaneously the best and worst part of the movie. There's a hacker and he has to like try to make like all of Earth citizens like legal citizens of the of this like rich space colony, and he just like changes a variable and it's like Earth citizens equal illegal, and he like deletes illegal and makes it say legal.
It's Office Space.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of a more serious Office Space, but yeah, it's really funny. It's just because it was kind of cringy, but it was also hilarious, and I think it was self-aware. Okay, I'm sorry, sidetrack. Fermi paradox. Why does Bobby hate my religion?
No, I'm not gonna fall into that troll trap. Life. So there are other hypotheses why we may not have seen life on other planets, right? You said you were looking at a list of them.
A list of other planets? What?
No, a list of hypotheses.
Like American deadpanned at the camera, and then like
for example, one of the reasons.
looked over.
One of the reasons why it could be that they are here, but they're hiding, right?
Okay, so we got a lot of stuff. Like we've got other reasons. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm not. Okay, they could be. Yeah, they could just not want to talk to us. Right. They could intentionally be concealing themselves, which is the Star Trek hypothesis. Of course, the prime directive in Star Trek is that you don't contact any civilization until they develop the warp drive.
Right.
The Culture series, actually, there are books that are equivalent, I think, to the Middle Ages. And I think there's an index that's like, yeah, Earth's kind of okay. We'll just leave it for now, and then eventually Earthlings go into space, kind of stuff.
So, do you think we would do that? Do you think we would take a page from Gene Roddenberry's playbook, and if we went interstellar traveling, do you think we would have some sort of prime directive like that, like with that being?
Well, here's the problem. I don't think we'll be thoughtful about it at all. Given that, if for instance, if tomorrow, whatever, Elon Musk, his company developed a warp drive, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there'd be any thought about ethics put into it in the current civilization that we currently have. That's the problem with our current civilization.
I think
things just get developed with no ethical consideration.
What's that book called? I'm not gonna remember it.
So the primary motivating factor right now would be like making rich people more rich. That would be the basic motivator.
I think it's like Hyperion, which is a good series. It's kind of like Canterbury's Tale. It's like a pilgrimage story, but like it's a space story in this world, not world, but this universe where they have basically colonized a bunch of places, and some of them are used as like resorts because they were really nice before, but then like all the indigenous life is dead because they've been colonized, and then there's a bunch of like wars between external groups that are like, hey, yeah, we don't like what you're doing, I think it'll be more like that, where like, yeah, okay, the bulk of people in that society like will be much better, but also there were, if assuming this is a dumb assumption, but like no, doesn't even matter. It doesn't have to be in alien life at all. It can just be like alien planets. Like those will be rabid.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you think
I think
this
our current
exploitation or lack of consideration problem that you brought up, EJ, do you think that is a reason to highly regulate space exploration?
I don't. It's like that's
before.
kind of putting the cart before the horse to me. I think we need to get our shit together on Earth. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the only precursor.
Right.
That's the only way you could probably avoid it is to change our entire culture and our entire way of.
And from the
making
other
decisions.
way, like the cart before the horse, because like space explorations would be like, hey, you're all gonna die, but we're sending you in this big bucket to go look, and it's not gonna be
Yeah.
any like taking over. It's gonna be literally like, hey, we found something, and then sending back a 500-year message.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it depends on how the technology develops or whatever, but yeah, basically, that's I think the biggest problem is our culture and our civilization, and there's no way that the way we have things set up right now, it would just be disastrous, for any less technologically advanced life forms we might come across. I mean, especially ecologically. Like, let's just pretend that there was, and this is perhaps an opportunity for you to transition soon, Bob. Wait till you hear what I'm about to say. Pretend that there was life on Mars, but it was like just plants and like bunny rabbits and stuff.
Or a
like,
song.
how long would it take for humans to just fuck that up?
Right. No. Yeah. No.
You know
kidding.
what I'm saying?
And that is a good.
Dang it, Bobby, that's exactly what we don't want.
These rabbits taste real good.
Yeah. So
Mars rabbits.
My main
brought to you by
question-
Nestle.
My main question was actually inspired by, did you know this is just something I wanted to mention at the beginning of my talk here, which is, did you know that that our current government in the United States has been working with NASA, and there's more of a looking towards actually going back to the moon, and NASA has made a big proposal that looked like there will be getting some kind of funding to go back to return to the moon and build a station around the moon. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, Captain Kirk did the commercial. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
There's a commercial with William Shatner, who does he's like, we're going back to the moon.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
but it's really exciting. It's something that I've been thinking about not for a long time, but I mean for a little bit, whatever.
Couple days.
For a couple days. Do you do that every time you've been thinking of something for more than a day? You just say, I've been thinking about it for a long time, or I saw this thing a long time ago, but really it was yesterday or 2 days ago. I do that all the time.
I have no concept of time, if that's what you're asking.
I live in the now.
If it was yesterday, it was 100 years ago. But NASA apparently is asking for more than $1 billion. They want to go back to the moon and build a station around it. The idea being it would be like a way station for us to do space stuff, like travel and everything, because
I think they want to permanently inhabit the moon, I think is what they said in the William Shatner thing I saw.
Yeah, and they want to create like stations on there that will harvest resources on the moon to create fuel and possibly build ships and stuff like that, because the really cost prohibitive part of traveling to space is getting enough fuel on the craft to get it off the ground. And then of course the more fuel you add, the heavier it is,
the more fuel you need to move the fuel.
Escape velocity is the problem.
Yeah, so it's like some crazy percentage of the weight of the space station, or space station, but spacecraft. Ryan's distracting us.
Ryan is the moon.
Yeah.
Ow.
Is the actual, like, some crazy percentage is the actual fuel that is going up. So
no, it's all exit velocity. Yeah, like that's the idea behind like crazy moonshot ideas like space elevators and stuff like that.
Right.
Or like putting something in Lagrange points, so like it's always there and doesn't degrade and what is it? It doesn't change positions ever. It's always there between us and the moon.
Yeah. So if you
the idea is to put something up there that doesn't move. What?
So
it's a static orbit.
Yes,
It doesn't degrade
yeah,
or
it's the Lagrange point around an object. If there are ever two objects, one orbiting the other, there is a Lagrange point between them. Actually, multiples that where the gravitational forces interact in such a way that you're like stuck there, whoop, and you just
They're called like L1, L2, and L3.
Yeah,
Clever,
sounds like
right?
my career.
Yeah. Hey-o. Rim shot. So thinking about that got me thinking about like the idea there is to go to Mars, and of course Elon Musk is always talking about going to Mars. So would you guys? The question I have for you guys is: would you guys go live on Mars? Let's assume Elon Musk is not going to be there, since apparently EJ's answer, if it was with Elon Musk, would probably be no.
Oh, I would go. I wouldn't mind having a little time alone with old Elon.
So would you go to Mars?
Yes. Emphatically, yes. Emphatically, yes.
Not in current situation, no. Emphatically,
What
no.
a surprise. I disagree with Ryan.
Only, like, all it would take for me to, like, go on a ship just being shot in the middle of nowhere for thousands of years is, like, basic, like, you go to sleep and then get woken up every, like, 100 years, kind of. Like, I don't want to sit on and die on Mars because I wanted to go see a place I can't actually go outside. Like,
I would love to get away from all of you.
Man,
yeah, but you'll be stuck with whoever you go with.
If
there's other
you
people.
thought the lag was bad in Vietnam while we're recording JBYC,
I'm afraid we might have to stop doing JBYC if I go to Mars, Bob. That might be the deal breaker, unless y'all came with me. But I think that I've thought about this a lot, because I've also thought about like what it would have been like to travel, because basically space travel, I think, like Ryan's saying, would be like travel was 500 years ago, only worse. Like, think about when Marco Polo went to China.
100%.
Marco Polo didn't just travel to China. He grew up traveling to China and like came back as an old man, basically, because it took like 30 years or something for, I can't remember.
Well, it won't take that long to get to Mars.
Yeah, I know, but
like,
I'm just
he's
saying
that like Mars is the ship. Like,
Right.
you get to live there.
I'm saying if I could get on a sleeper ship
forever.
and I could fly to another galaxy, I would definitely go. So Mars is like easy peasy in comparison.
Right.
Yeah, so
Going
if
to
I could
Mars
do
is
a
just
sleeper
like an
thing-
extended cruise, right? Without the free food and without the
Yeah.
Well, there's free
Well,
food. It's just not a buffet.
And I would do the sleeper thing even if I like there was like 0% of ever finding anything, because like that kind of exploration I'm down for. Like, I'm willing to be the person that like load me up with some music and some video games and then send me into the middle of nowhere.
Like Matt Damon.
Yeah.
You'd be
No,
willing to engineer the
like-
shit out of things on Mars?
No, not like, I mean just like going out into oblivion.
Yeah. Yeah,
I find that
I
more-
would
I
get
would do
caught
it.
up with all my podcasts.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but
I
you'd
would-
be
I would-
on
I would do the hell out of
cliffhangers
that.
for all your podcasts.
Hey, speaking of awesome sci-fi, Ryan, you might like this. There is a sci-fi book. I think it's called. Is it called a Mote in God's Eye?
Yes.
It's about the time dilation.
Yeah, I've
that the
never
one I'm
read it,
thinking
but I
of?
know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's a mote in God's eye. Yeah. Who is that again? I'm not gonna remember who that is.
Larry Niven and Jerry Pornell. It was a
Niven,
group effort. I
okay,
think that's the one I'm thinking of. But there's I think it's that book. But the whole idea is like no, that's not what I'm thinking of. That is a good book. I'm thinking of something else. There's one book that talked about the
I think Niven
time
does
dilation.
Old Man's War.
It was a war book. The Forever War. The Forever War. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
The Forever War is really good. It's about their, like, every time they travel, you know, it's the only book I've ever read that really addresses time dilation. There's also an anime short.
Hyperion, the book I brought up earlier, when they travel, basically you have two ages. You have your standard age on the place where you were born, and you have the age that's been docked by travel. So you just add like 300 years on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though
Voices
like you
from
can
a
still
Distant Star.
communicate. Okay.
Voices of a Distant Star is about two people who are communicating, and one of them is traveling like faster than light, so she's like stuck in time.
Mm-hmm.
And then her childhood friend, who's a guy who's in love with her, is like going through his whole life. So for her experience, it's only like months, but for him, it's like he's growing up and moving on with
See,
his life.
Hyperion,
It's
you
like,
can still instant communication. They have like they do a little bit of like magic sci-fi where it's
Yeah.
like we have farcasters where you can just walk over someone, but they're high technology, so people don't really have them. But like it's still the idea of like you have two different ages, even though you're not really that much older, or unless you don't do faster than light. If you just do normal travel, then yes, obviously you're.
man, it would suck to be like on Tinder with somebody who's like light years and light traveling at faster than the speed of light, because you'd be waiting forever to get those replies. It'd be like, so and so is typing ... for like 7 years.
Oh man,
What's up with you?
You awake?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Winky.
So you would
7 years later.
So
you get
Ryan,
the
you would
winky
not
face.
go to Mars, and EJ, you would, even though you
Not
know.
in the
I would
current-
go anywhere. Yes.
Not in
I
the
would go
current
anywhere.
situation. I wouldn't go to Mars. It's just
I would
you
not
get
go
there
because I'll
and
be
not
dead.
do anything.
You'll be
Yeah,
dead.
Yeah,
What do
I
you mean
mean,
you'll be
come on.
dead?
If you're the first people to go, you're gonna die.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
not
like,
true. We went to the
you're gonna
moon
die
and we didn't
anyway.
die. You're
No.
the only
The
one who died
moon
first
is-
was
The moon is totally different than Mars. Come on, I'm talking about. First of all, if you go to Mars,
That's
you're
a
probably
controversial scientific position you're taking there, Bob.
No. First of all, if we send people to moose, then they're come on, really, they're probably not coming back, right? Like they're going there.
I was under the impression they're not coming back. Yes.
Yeah. So you're gonna die
Not
on
a
Mars,
day trip.
and I'm not talking about dying of
I
old
don't think
age.
you're gonna
die from atmospheric seal failure or something.
No, I don't see why you think that. I think that
I think old
that
age.
they'll do
like-
fine.
No, like
The thing that I would be worried
about.
about is like, there's stuff like
American-
radiation, bone marrow loss,
The radiation thing.
like
They're
muscle.
not going to send anybody unless they
atrophy.
solve that problem first. Because that's the thing that everyone
That's a big
talks
ass
about.
problem.
Right, but that's the
That's a
thing that's
big-ass problem.
constantly being talked about. So I really think that nobody's going to go until that problem's solved. So
What about the muscle atrophication and you lose like bone marrow and stuff? It's really bad for your DNA. I think for reasons beyond the radiation, like you have DNA degradation and
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I'm not a doctor, so I don't know.
I am.
I'm not listening to you anymore.
What?
I was trying to remember a book series and I forgot, and I didn't listen to you
At least
anymore.
Ryan's honest.
Clearly, I'm an optimist about Mars travel, but I think that it's a risky place to be. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
I like the idea.
I
of
wanna-
travel. I just think that like you're signing your warrant to be bored for the rest of your life.
Ryan's not worried about the death certificate. He's worried about the board.
We all
certificate.
die.
Sometimes I think
don't
about going
understand
to
what you're talking
prison
about. Like you're gonna die
and, like,
regardless.
I don't actually believe this because I know that it's actually like psychological torture or whatever. But sometimes when I think about being in solitary confinement, it really doesn't sound that bad to me. But it would be obviously it would be awful.
Yeah.
It would be awful. It would be awful. I want to make that clear. But I'm just saying, like, I do kind of like to be alone. But I don't want to eat the garbage food. Like, if I could be in solitary confinement but have like really good food and the internet and
Just go into another room and don't let anyone in it.
Yeah. You
I
can
do. I do like every single day of my life. I do that.
Then you're set.
Then you already have your version.
But why
of
not be
solitary
doing that
confinement.
on the way to Mars and be like a Cosmo space boy?
You're not going to have a luxury trip to Mars, all right? You're going to be with other people, and they're not going to give you your own private quarters.
You're actually gonna be like the opposite of your own place.
As long as
Yeah,
they
so
give me my
everyone in a
space,
box
I'll
like
give
that
them their
big.
space. We'll go to Mars. There won't be a problem.
Are you gonna get out the roll of space duct tape and put a line?
Yes,
on the
you
thing?
stay on your side of the capsule. I will stay on my side of the capsule. We won't talk to each other unless we're discussing sensor reports.
Yeah. I gotcha. All right, that's good. That's good. Here we go.
Get us out of here.
I'm gonna be a great astronaut.
Music.
Commander
Jump the gun.
Johnson in the 21st century.
All right, that music, as you know, means that we are at the end of the show. I think we have solved space travel problems. The Fermi paradox is no longer a paradox. It is.
We're ready.
Yeah, we're all ready.
We found life. We found you.
Yeah.
That's my spaceship pickup line.
Hey, you gotta have them ready, right?
Oh no, the Burger King has returned.
The Burger King has returned to tell us it's time to stop taking so long to close the podcast. All right, so as you know, this week's theme is spaceships. If you want to vote on the show's future themes, you need to head on over to our Discord server. We'll have a poll up. Also, our Twitter account at JBYC Show. We put it there, and you get to vote on what the next theme will be. The next theme has already been decided by the community. It's going to be... So I would like to point out that the choices were things like edibles, wieners, but our audience decided to go a little bit different route, and it's going to be hope. We're going to be the next theme is going to be hope, which I think is going to be significantly harder than edibles or wieners.
Yeah. We're all going to be off topic this episode.
All right, so but you know what? That poll that goes up has 4 options on it, and we don't just arbitrarily decide what's going to be on there. The way that the things get on there are
you decide.
You guys decide. In the after party that we have live on every time we record the show, we get our audience to help us pick what's going to be on there. So you should show up for the live show and do that someday, and then we'll have fun. Let's see. Find our email and Twitter at jbyc.net. Watch us live on YouTube at youtube.com/JBYC Show every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, or listen to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. From me, from EJ, and from Ryan, thank you very much for listening, and live listeners.
And from the stars.
From the stars.
You're supposed to just keep going when I do a sub vocal.
All right.
Stop getting sub vocal.
We're going to go, and we'll see the live listeners in the after party. See you guys soon.